And with that said, let's get our guest speaker up here. Ladies and gentlemen, we're so excited about having her every Monday of the month of May. And I'm back, rested, ready to go. Look out, I am ready to go. Fired up. Mm-mm-mm. This young lady hails from Northern California. She just came back from Lake Tahoe, where I put it down. I heard it from Lake Tahoe at the regional they had up there. And I tell you what, she's an influencer. She's also a community leader in her area. She's also take care of her dad. She's also built her Asian business. I loved her story from last week because she told it like it was. She came in, didn't want to see it, didn't want to hear it. Some of us the same way, don't want to hear it, don't want to see it. And once she heard it, she went, "Oh my goodness!" She heard it and took off with this business. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give a warm welcome to coming back to our call this Monday to start the week off, Miss Keri Roeder, Regional Vice President Platinum.
Good morning, Mr. Thomas. I am in my car with the top down. Well, I'm excited to be back on this call. I do apologize. I've been up super early. I have a hat on and everything. My kiddo has actually just had surgery this morning, and I'm waiting outside to get her out of recovery when this call is over. So, but it's a beautiful sunny day. So I'm sitting here in my car with the top down. It's funny as he talks about those trips, and my husband and I have been able to go on 3 of them, and 2 of which were with Mr. Thomas. And I'm telling he's correct. Our first one was New Orleans and Nolans, and they shut the streets down for us, had to parade the whole bit. It was cool, never opened our wallets. Then we went on to Cayman Islands. That also had the clear water tour. You could see all the way down. And then the last one was the cruise to the Haitian Islands. And so I am working hard to qualify for the next trip as well, because I'm super bummed I missed this one. I was communicating with everybody over there, and I'm like, I should be there. So yeah, work hard, make sure you qualify, start now. It really, start now, and you can absolutely get it done. So I wanted to continue my story. So for those of you who missed last week, I believe it's recorded and put somewhere, but I'm telling you the start of my story because I want you to hear the little nuggets of leadership that are inside of my story, and how I was invited to see ACN, how I was shown ACN, my attitude. So several of you were in Tahoe with us, and I trained on personalities, right? Personal development and personalities. And so where I left off last week is, I was sitting on the couch, Henri, didn't want to be there, all right? My attitude, and saw Mr. Street and Mr. LaMontagne jogging, and I thought, I want that lifestyle. So to continue with the story, one of the reasons why I teach personality types is because when you know the 4 basic personality types that we use when we create edification in ACN, those 4 personality types also apply to when we're interacting, when we're showing the ACN opportunity, when we're recruiting and all that. So what ended up happening was Mrs. Wagner was the one, the mentor for my cousin Michael. So here I am sitting on my parents' couch, all ornery, right? Having to see this stupid little video. And then halfway through the video, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. But I had to kind of maintain my composure for a minute, right? Because I'd been such a brat. And so Mrs. Wagner was sitting to my left and my cousin was sitting to my right. And she picked up on my personality. I'm a shark. I'm like, I don't have time for this. Like, I had such an attitude. So my cousin Michael, who was newish, he'd been in the business now almost 2 months at this point, had, I guess a month, turned to Mrs. Wagner, who normally would do the presentation, but she picked up on me. And so she led the rest of the conversation knowing my personality. And so I want you to really kind of think this through. Okay, even though there had been a big home meeting, because I showed up at the end, this was technically a one-on-one. So she turns to my cousin and says, you present. Nobody's brand new. Okay, so here's another little tip, okay? My cousin, who was brand new, had been to trainings, had been writing little sticky notes of what to say in each box. So he nervously hands me the box, and back then it was 1 through 10, the sheet. And as he hands it to me, I'm a shark. I got it. I don't need any more details, right? But he starts to fumble, and he is probably 3 or 4 minutes into box 1 looking at his sticky notes. And I'm like, okay, I can't handle this anymore. So I I said, excuse me, honey. So I turned to her and I'm like, listen, because I'm maintaining my attitude. I was like, listen, I have time for this. Like, what kind of money are we talking about here? I need to make sure this is worth my time. So she whips out what you can make in the regional director, now today's regional director position. Back then it was team coordinator position. And she whipped out the dollar range, what you can make in that position. I was like, okay. And I looked at my cousin, I was like, keep going. But the whole time he was talking, I was like, stop. You could tell that I wanted to do this. Okay. But he fumbled his way through the rest of it. And then that's when I was like, okay, yep, I'm in, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So there's that little tidbit. Okay. So now, I'm still whatever, whatever. So I pick up my kid. We go home. I walk in the door. Obviously, was gone for like over an hour. So my husband figured out that I was finally seeing what everybody was doing. Right. So I walk in the door and he goes, I walk in the door and I go, we're going to be rich. And he goes, oh my God, did you see what they're doing? I go, yeah. Oh my God, that's so great. Right. So I hand him my piece of paper and I do a little mini presentation. I start to explain to him what it's all about. And so, and mind you, he's a business person, like, right? So and we've been together at that point, it was like, I don't know, like 13 years or something like that, right? We've been on our third home. We got married, had a kid, running businesses, and I'm educated, right? So as I'm explaining this, he finally goes, you're not making any sense. And I was all, yeah, I do. I make perfect sense. Like, look at it. It's right here. He's like, yeah, no, you don't make any sense. And so me being with my personality, you guys get my personality. I'm like, well, whatever, makes perfect sense to me. And not only did I get one, I got one for you too. And I walked away. So then, to shorten the story, I then scheduled my PBRs, right? And so Mrs. Wagner drove the 2.5 hours away that she lives from me. And she said, but I'm going to come up. I wanted to do a couple presentations. And so I scheduled a morning breakfast presentation because we were in kindergarten at the time. And all of these kindergarten moms and I would be with our kids, dropping them off. Then we'd visit for a minute. And they were all at least 10 years younger than me. I've got stories about that. Anyway, and they knew I was successful in business. And so I figured they respected me. So I had a breakfast kindergarten mom PBR scheduled. And then that evening I had a regular PBR scheduled. Okay. So here are some tips. So I hadn't been trained yet. And so next morning, take my kid to kindergarten. And as everybody's kind of leaving, like, hey, hold on, come on, ladies. Right. And so I gathered them all up and I was like, hey, Tuesday or whatever the day was. I need y'all to come over, like clear your morning after we drop off the kids. I need you to live across the street. I'm like, need you to come over to my house. Got a great business presentation for you. I'm going to have breakfast. It's going to be awesome. Right. So I invite all these kindergarten moms, but they started asking me questions and I hadn't been in training. So I started answering their questions and I did a lovely, what my husband now calls a peakitation. I did a little mini presentation in the parking lot, thinking that because I was successful in business, that they would respect that I was giving them the information and they would come see it anyway because of who I am. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen, no matter who you are and who they are to you, you give the details, you do a little mini presentation instead of just piquing interest and passing, right? Yeah. So two ladies showed up that morning and I think they only showed up for the food, right? Or maybe out of respect for me. I don't know. But that was all that showed in my morning PBR. So then my evening PBR, my house was packed. It was great. Okay. Well, what ended up happening was, so my husband came home from work and doorbell rings and it's Mrs. Wagner. She came back. She had gone to work with some other IBOs during the day. So she came back. So I introduced my husband to Mrs. Wagner. Oh, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Well, the doorbell rings and my husband disappears. I'm like, okay. And so everybody's filing in, right? Super great. I'm all nervous. I introduce her. She comes up. She does a great normal presentation like Mr. Thomas does. At the very end of it, she is, talking to my friends and family to see what they want to do. Another pro tip. So I didn't know, right? So I had ordered pizzas to be delivered at a certain time. So I'm talking to one of my ex-coworkers and she needed ACN. Okay. How many of you know the people who need ACN? Okay. She's in that financial situation. So I'm talking to Judy And I'm like, oh my God, Judy, like we'll do this together. This is so great, blah, 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 all that. And so basically, short version is she was like, okay, well, I'll borrow the money from my kids to get started. I said, okay. And then ding dong, the pizzas show up. And turns out Judy didn't do it. And later, when I asked her why, she was like, I can't afford to buy pizza for everybody because like all these pizzas come filing in. Oh, that's why we say pretzels and water, you guys, because that's duplicatable. Anyway, so at the end of this, people are deciding what to do. Everybody leaves. My husband comes walking out. Here's a continuation of the story of I don't make any sense. He walks out after everybody leaves, looks at Mrs. Wagner and goes, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. And I'm all, I said the same exact thing. And she didn't know us at this time, right? Now we're besties, but she starts giggling. And I'm like, dude, I said the same exact thing that she just said. I'm like, and we're standing in the hallway listening, like, what? He's like, oh no, that makes perfect sense. Oh yeah, we're gonna do so good, blah, 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 right? And I look at him, I go, and I look at her, I go, seriously, I said the same exact thing. She goes, training tip number one, teach people when they see it independent of their spouse or significant other or somebody they need to help make them make a decision with, right? Teach them not to do a presentation because they will not hear the business model in the method in which, like, in the eyes of the business, right? They won't see it as a business. They're going to see it through the lens in which they see you. And I was like, okay. And I'm telling you, 14 years later, it is so true. And as many times as I warn that story, cannot tell you how many people go home and just on their significant other or whatever. And those people talk them out of it. My husband had the opportunity to talk me out of it. Well, guess what? Yeah, no, not this girlfriend, right? I make my own independent decisions. If you don't, that's fine. Okay, I'm not bagging on anybody, but what I'm saying is I make my own independent decisions. And so regardless of what my husband said, I was still going to do it, okay, because I had my reasons why to do it. But my part of this story today is multi-layer. Know who you're presenting, know who you are, know who you're presenting to, and read the room. If you have a shark, talk shark, right? If you have a whale, talk whale, etc., etc. And then also teach people not to leave the presentation and go do mini presentations all over the place to try to get them to the PBR or PBZ, right? Your only job is to peak and pass. It is our job as leaders to do the presentation and allow your contacts to see ACN in an actual true business light versus through the lens in which how they see you. And then, so next week, because we're out of time today, next week, I'm going to go over my original list and share with you all kind of that jump start of what I did and I didn't do. And what I could have done differently. However, the fast success start that we did have. So hopefully my story, I know it's long, but hopefully you're getting all of the little tips out of it so that you can go out and build your business successfully and find amazing people like Mr. Thomas, Mrs. Renata Krumer, and all the top producing regional directors on the call. So I'm going to turn this back to you, Mr. Thomas. I need to get inside and pick up my kiddo. But again, I do appreciate you allowing me to share my experience with your team and all our team and everything that we do. And I will be with you on the next trip, as will many of people on this call. And as always, love you, respect you, appreciate you. And I get to see you next week. Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas.